Welcome to the Toronto High School Subject Selection General Information Session, Year 10 into Year 11 2021. We are doing things a little bit differently this year due to the COVID-19 situation, and we will not be holding a face-to-face information session like we usually would. What we're doing is we're going to be having a series of PowerPoint videos placed up on the school website, and we're going to be running a series of Zoom sessions over the course of a week or so that we'll be publishing as well. And that'll allow parents and students to duck into the subjects that they're interested in, to listen to the head teachers and the course coordinators, or if they miss those Zoom meetings, they'll be able to just go to our school website and have a look at the various subjects and make their choices using that information. The purpose of my presentation is to outline some basic terminology and some general information about subject selection and about the preliminary year and the HSC year. The good thing about this is that this will actually go less than what the evening usually would. It'll be a bit more succinct. And if there's information here that you need to go a bit more deeper into, feel free to be using our subject selection information booklet or jump onto the websites that may assist you, such as the NESA website or the UAC website. And they'll provide you with additional information around the things I will talk about on this PowerPoint. First of all, Year 11 is known as the preliminary year. It is a prerequisite for Year 12. You must complete Year 11 before moving on to Year 12. Year 11 commences in Term 1. So for our current Year 10 group, it'll start next year, Term 1, 2021. Only goes for 3 terms. So Year 11 will end at the end of Term 3 next year. So what that means is for our current Year 10 students, they will commence the HSC next year in Term 4, 2021. So it's not that far away, just over 12 months away, students will be commencing the HSC. Different to Year 11, Year 12 will go over 4 terms, not 3 terms. So Year 12 will commence Term 4, 2021, and will continue through to the end of Term 3, 2022, which will then see the students move into the HSC exams over Term 4. ATAR, often hear about the ATAR. The ATAR stands for the Australian Tertiary Admission Rank, and the ATAR is used by universities to determine students' entry into the courses that they are offering. The types of courses that we have for the HSC, we have NESA board developed courses. Most of them count towards an ATAR. And we also have NESA board endorsed courses. They don't count towards an ATAR, but both of them will count towards a HSC. There's further information in the subject selection booklet in regards to those courses. A few more details about the types of courses. With the board developed courses, there are some finer details around students who are doing English studies and or mathematics standard 1 and who wish to receive an ATAR. But we will case manage that and work with the students involved, and there's further information in the subject selection handbook. And also the board developed courses do include some of the vocational education training courses. But once again, we will case manage that up to 2 units, then can count towards an ATAR. One of the key points around the board endorsed courses is that many of them will actually include mandatory workplace training, and that's one that students must do. We also have 2 different types of board developed courses, Category A and Category B. If we think of our Category A as our more traditional academic rigorous type subjects, which have HSC examinations, and we can think of our Category B courses as more of those courses that have a vocational education and training focus. We do have optional HSC exams for many of those courses, and up to 2 units from those Category B courses can be used towards an ATAR. Preliminary HSC courses. In order to qualify for a HSC, students must first of all have satisfactorily completed the preliminary HSC, which was 12 units. Generally, that translates to 6 subjects. And they must have completed the HSC, which is a study of at least 10 units, or in general terms, 5 subjects at a minimum. Some students will continue on with their 12 units into the HSC, and some students carry more than 12 units. Some students will carry 13 or 14 units into the HSC. Once again, that's an individual choice, and we'll work with the students when we get to that point at the end of year 11 going into year 12. And there are pros and cons for both positions, for keeping 12 units or for dropping down to 10 units. There are some requirements, and this is where we work with each of the students to ensure that they are doing the correct pattern of study to achieve the credentialing that they are after at the end of year 12. So for both year 11 and year 12, English is compulsory. There is no choice around that. There is choice around the level of English course that you can do, but English is compulsory. You must do at least 6 units of board developed courses and 3 courses of 2 units value or greater, because we do have courses of different unit value. You must have at least 4 subjects in your pattern, and that includes English, so English and 3 other subjects, and a maximum of 6 units of science can be included in year 11. That does change in year 12. This is a relatively new change to the HSC, where we have science extension, and that may be introduced in year 12 for those students who wish to take up science extension, which means you may carry 7 units of science into the HSC. I mentioned English is mandatory. English Studies and Mathematics Standard 1 are board developed courses with the optional HSC exam, and these are some of the changes that have been made to the HSC in the last few years. So for parents who have had older children go through, this is one of the changes, where students who choose English Studies or Mathematics Standard 1 and want to receive an ATAR, in the past that was not possible, but now they may study one of those courses and sit an optional exam and use that towards an ATAR. But can only be one, can't be both Mathematics Standard and 1 and English Studies. It's one or the other. Some other points, and this is explained further in the subject selection handbook or on the NESA website, that in determining the number of courses that you have to do to meet the pattern of study, extension courses are not separate subjects. So for example, if you are doing advanced English and you're picking up 1 unit extension, it still only counts as 1 subject of English, even though there's 3 units of English. And I mentioned there before, 6 units in science in year 11, but that can increase to 7 units for science extension in year 12. Pathways. So not all students will complete the HSC in 2 years, and there can be a multitude of reasons for that. At Toronto High School, we do run an accelerated program. So we do have a number of students who will be sitting the HSC in 1 subject 1 year as they complete, and then the next year they'll be completing at least another 4 subjects. We have other students who across the HSC year will actually split their subjects, so they may do 2 or 3 subjects 1 year and then may do another 2 or 3 the next year. But we have 5 years for students to accumulate their HSC. So 5 years to complete the HSC. Once again, we work with students through that. That's an individual case management if students are not going to be following the usual pattern of 1 year for year 11 and 1 year for year 12. This has been around for a while now about students needing to remain at school until they turn 17, unless they obtain full-time employment for a minimum of 25 hours a week, enrolling in TAFE or another approved training organisation for a full-time course, or a combination of both. So for those students who are looking after year 10 after the completion on leaving school, we workshop that with them with Mr. Connell to make sure that they're meeting the appropriate guidelines before leaving school. Otherwise, students have to stay till they are 17. This is a relatively new requirement as well, and it's what we call the minimum testing, standard testing in literacy and numeracy. So all students, when they leave school, if they wish to have the credential of a HSC, they must meet minimum standards in literacy and numeracy, and that involves doing testing in reading, numeracy, and writing. And it's our goal at Toronto High School to make sure that no student leaves at the end of the HSC without qualifying due to issues around minimum standard testing. So we will once again case manage and work with students individually to ensure that they do meet those minimum standards in literacy and numeracy. Life skill courses. So this is mainly for our students from special ed. We, once again, case manage this as well. So there could be a combination for our students coming from the special education unit, and sometimes not as well, some of our mainstream students, where we can enroll them in life skill courses or a combination of life skill courses and board developed and endorsed courses. Attendance. Attendance is one of the key factors in students being successful at the HSC. Essentially, you need to attend. I see attendance as no different to, if we used a sporting analogy, if you were off to training every night, you're going to do better than if you're somebody in the team who's not training. If you're training, you know, and you're prepared for game day. If you're not training, well, you're not. So same with school. If you're turning up every day, that's your training, and you're going to be prepared for your assessment tasks and for the HSC. And if you're not turning up, you won't be. It's a fairly simple type of concept. It is the single most valuable thing a student can do to ensure success. That is, turn up and get the relative information and then work hard. If students are not attending, they will receive a end notification, which will be more about missing vital programmed instruction. Not so much about attendance. It is related to the attendance, because if they're not there, they can't do the work. And students all must attend morning roll call, no matter when their first lesson starts. And that's because we do put out a lot of information at the beginning of the school day, which is pertinent to students and the organisation of the school. In senior school, we also run what we call period zeros and period sixes and sevens, and they are outside of our usual timetable. The reason for that is we offer a wide range of subjects at the senior level, and in order to offer that, we actually don't have enough time slots in our normal core timetable. So we do have lessons commencing at 7:30 in the morning and going through to sometimes up to 4:20 in the afternoon. They are compulsory as well, so students have to be prepared for those core hours in the HSC years. And to satisfactorily complete a course, essentially you must turn up, you've got to follow that course, you've got to apply yourself, so you've got to work hard, and you've got to achieve the course outcomes. And I will highlight that if you are doing a VET course, vocational education training course, and there's mandatory work placement in that course, you must do the mandatory work placement. If you don't, and you require that VET course for your credentialing of the HSC or for an ATAR by not doing that mandatory work placement, you will not get a HSC. So it's pretty serious, and we will highlight that around the mandatory work placement. Additional requirements, essentially, must turn up. You must complete at least 50% of your available marks in the course, and every task you do and the HSC, you must make a serious attempt. If you don't, it will be an N award and it will not count. Another mandatory course that all students have to undertake going into the senior years is All My Own Work. And this is to support students so they understand the principles and practices of good scholarship. So quite simply, we don't want students plagiarizing work. We don't want students just cutting and pasting work that is not their own. Because if they do that, that's actually a breach. They will receive an award because it must be their own work. Hence, the course, All My Own Work, for that understanding around what they need to do in the HSC years to ensure that it is their own work that they are submitting. And that's for the integrity of the HSC and for those assessment tasks. Making subject choices. Here we go. This is the bit that you're probably the most interested in. Some golden rules. First of all, choose subjects that you're good at. Seems a pretty simple idea, but please, if you are good at something, choose it. And usually they're the subjects that you are interested in. People tend to be interested in the subjects that they are good at. So select those subjects. Also have a look at if you've got an idea around what you would like to do in the future. You could then base some of your subject selections around that. If it's you're heading for future employment or study in the science fields, you might study a number of science subjects, etc. If you don't know what you're going to do, that's not a problem either. I'm going to be talking about that in a moment in regards to leaving many doors open. So you've got options when you leave school. Select things that you want to do, not what your friends want to do. Your friend might not make it through to the end of the HSC, and then you might be sitting in a subject which you chose for no other reason except to be there with your friend, and that's not going to bode well in regards to your motivation and results. And also, I know that students are highly motivated by the teacher that they might have for the course, but teachers do change, and we don't allocate teachers to courses until term 4. So you'll be doing your subject selections now, and we won't actually be allocating those teachers till later in the year. So don't count on a certain teacher taking a certain subject. The pathways that we have available at Toronto High School, and we group them into 4 different areas. And that's, we do acknowledge that we have students here who are remaining on at school for a range of reasons. There'll be those who are here purely for the academic subjects. They know that they wish to go to university. Some of them will even know exactly what they want to do at university. So we do have an academic pathway. They're essentially our category A subjects where we're aiming up for an ATAR, an entry into university straight from school. And we have those students who maybe are not quite sure. They're not quite sure if they wish to go to university or if they wish to go to TAFE, or if they're just going to, at the end of the HSC, go out and get a job. I'd recommend the academic and vocational pathway for you. By following this pathway, you will still get the credential of a HSC and you'll still meet the requirements for an ATAR. This means you're leaving as many doors open as you possibly can. You can still walk through that university door if you wish, and you still get a taste of some vocational subjects if you're thinking about leaving at the end of year 12 and going out into the workforce or doing further study through TAFE. We also have a vocational pathway. So that's for students who are not looking at going to university. So you're closing that door, but you are leaving open the door to TAFE, and you are getting a HSC, and you will get some Cert 2 qualifications along the way. Then we have the non-HSC pathway. And this is the one that we case manage most carefully with students, because if you select this, you do close a number of doors. You will close immediately the university door, and you will also close the door around getting a HSC. There are ways around it, but it does involve pathways and staying on at school for longer. Essentially, the non-HSC pathway is for those students and families who acknowledge that as soon as they turn 17 or as soon as they're able to get an apprenticeship or a traineeship or a job, they will be leaving school. The catch is, of course, if they don't get an apprenticeship or a traineeship and they're still at school as we head into the HSC. So that's a risk there that we need to manage with the parents and the students. That is a deeper conversation. And for those students that may be looking at that pathway, we will be having further conversations with you in regards to that non-HSC pathway. How do we determine the subjects that we offer each year? Well, the subjects that we're offering each year are printed in the subject selection booklet, but just because they're printed in the subject selection booklet doesn't mean they will actually run in year 11 and year 12. That's the process that we're commencing now, is determining which of those subjects will actually be conducted over the course of year 11 and year 12. The way we determine that, well, we actually don't. Students make that determination. So it's based on student choice. So it's based on the subjects that you choose, your friends choose, the rest of your cohort choose, and essentially that determines the subjects that will be offered into year 11 and year 12. So we do offer those subjects which prove to be the most popular. Part of the thinking around that is that if you're doing subjects that you wish to do, you're more likely to do better at the HSC. What this means, however, is that there may be some subjects that don't run. And that's why it's important that when you're doing your subject selections, you consider your reserve subjects, and you need to be happy with those reserve subjects, because there is a likelihood that you may end up doing a number of your reserve subjects. There are very few cases each year whereby students can't get one or more of the subjects, including their reserve subjects. They're the ones where we have the individual conversations with and try and work something out. Unfortunately, like I said, there are a few cases each year where we might not be able to solve the problems for those students. We are a very large school. We do offer a very wide range of subject choices, but I do need to have a certain number in those classes in order to make them viable. Generally, we will have a few of our academic subjects will run with some lower numbers to ensure the viability of those rigorous subjects, but I do need, in general, 10 to 15 students in order to have a subject operational into the next year. Where to from here? Read the subject selection book and all the curriculum information that we have in there. For further information, go to the NESA website, and for the students here at school, have a conversation with your teachers, the teachers of those subjects that you're interested in for next year, the head teachers of the faculties, your year advisor, Mr. Connell, the careers advisor, all come up to the front office and have a conversation with one of the deputy principals or myself. On the day when you're making the subject selections, Mrs. Phillipson, Mr. Connell and the team there will be supporting you and checking your subject choices to make sure that you're meeting the requirements for an ATAR, if that's what you're after, your HSC, and to make sure that the choices you're making are within the frameworks required in order to achieve the credentialing. Your subject selection process, what you need to do is to fill out the form in the back of the subject selection handbook, have mum or dad sign that form, bring that in. Mrs. Phillipson will be advertising when your class will be doing the online selection, because it's done at school. We'll take you to a computer room, and that's where the subject selection team will work with you to check your pattern of study and to assist you in inputting that online. At the end of the process, you'll receive a printout, which you need to take home to mum and dad. That's to confirm your entries. That's so mum and dad know the subjects that you have selected for year 11 and year 12. Mum and Dad need to sign that form, and you need to bring that form back in. Until you bring that form back in, you do not have a secure online choice. So until that form is back, your choice will not actually count, even though we have that there in the system. So make sure you get those forms back signed ASAP. From there, we'll then determine which subjects will actually be conducted into 2021. And for those students whose subjects won't be offered, we'll be back in contact with you to make another selection around those subjects that are up and running. And for those students where there is no choice that they're willing to make, we'll have those conversations with the family and determine a way forward. And finally, thank you very much for watching and listening to this presentation. If you have any further questions, please contact me. There's my email address. It's mark.mcconville@det.nsw.edu.au, or feel free to phone the school, contact the year advisor or the relevant subject teacher or head teacher. Otherwise, good luck in making your subject choices for Year 11, 2021.